Good evening, friends. Welcome to this edition of the Thursday night mystery wine blind tasting here at Field & Main Restaurant. I have this beautiful little number in front of me. Floral, expressive, red, blue fruit perhaps. We'll find out in moments as we dive into this more fully, but if you're joining, please let me know. I saw a couple of you. I saw Renee Dunn last night joining us with the friend and tasting some wines, and others have popped through in the last couple of weeks in order to pick up some bottles. So hopefully you're able to join this evening to work this little number. I'm very excited to blind taste this evening. In anticipation, kind of a little bit fevered. If I have a look a little flush, it's one part because it's 95 degrees outside, and two parts because I'm trying to frantically get ready. I'm leaving tomorrow to head to Bordeaux with a number of folks to sample the wares of that wonderful region. We'll do some blind tasting on board a ship called the Bon Voyage, a Uniworld touring ship. Very excited to do that, and I'm looking forward to sharing some of the information I get on that trip as I come back. But for this evening, hello to Bobbin and Dean, the Kavitskys. Hello up there from Pennsylvania. Thanks for coming down a couple of weeks back. Dave and Julie are here with them. It's great. Trish, Andy, and Kathy, wonderful to have you this evening. Awesome to be able to taste with you. And Cleo, glad to have you tonight too. Colleen, you're north of Pittsburgh. Very cool. Very cool. Well, like we've talked about before, it's neat to see when these wines travel with, of course, their blind tasters. But we've had a chance to do a whole bunch of tasting around the world together, which is great. Kathy, you'll be tasting hopefully some wonderful wines in Greece. That's really cool. If you need any suggestions, Claudio, our colleague here, is from Greece and has a host of options of where you should go and shouldn't go. But I imagine you already have a lot of things planned out if you're leaving on Sunday. So if not, give us a buzz over this way or shoot us an email, and Claudio can certainly help. I know I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Just the aromatics on this wine right out of the gate are expressive, and that art just called my attention. I just poured the wine at 6:59, pressed go live, and I'm here. So I don't have any advanced kind of decanting that's going on here, and it's very expressive to start with. So without further ado, let's work this wine. Let's look at it. First and foremost, what do you see? By way of color, by way of its imprint on the glass as you swirl it, does it form tears that stream down, and then do they stay in the form of legs? Amy and John and Tyson's, good evening to you guys. Welcome. Yeah, I agree, Sarah and crew, Pennsylvania crew. The nose is amazing, isn't it? It is so complex and layered and expressive. We'll get there. I'm just getting ahead of myself because it is just offering so much. But from the visual standpoint, what do you see? What kind of color? Is it clear in color? So for those that maybe are just kind of beginning to play along or haven't been with us for some time, we're talking about the visual appearance of the wine first and foremost, because you learn a lot about a wine. And from the deductive process of blind tasting, we're more often than not looking to weed out what it isn't before we decide what it is. And that process of deducing what it might be and reducing the options are helpful. And it's rudimentary even from the visual standpoint. This is red, right? That seems super basic, but it's not a white wine. So that eliminates half the wine in the world, right? It's not a rosé. It's not sparkling. There's no bubbles here. It could be fortified. It might not be. You can't necessarily tell that from color, but we can get a sense of that. So it's probably a still wine. From that standpoint, we have a red wine. And then is this a light kind of see-through wine, or is it more opaque, deep purple, light red, kind of brickish color? Where does it sit? And wherever we determine that sits tells us something about what might be in this glass, and it helps to narrow maybe the places it might be from, potential varietals that we're looking at, right? Candy, Kevin, Emily, Nicole, Bev, and Jeremy, tasting at Myrtle Beach. You brought it with you too. That's awesome. That's fantastic. Cheers to you guys. Hope you're having a grand beach time. Thank you for making a little bit of time from that vacation to spend some time doing this. Barbara, Chris, and Randy, Mike, Kiva, Kathy, and Bill. Awesome. We have this grand crew. We have these big tasting panels. All right, tasting panels, what do you see? What kind of color? What forms by way of the swirl? Tears that are fast and sheeting, like one long sheet? Are they definable tears? Are they slow moving? Do they hold their shape once they've fallen in the form of a leg? What do you got? Ruby color, Candy, yes, I agree. This is in the reddish category for sure. I don't get a whole lot of purple tint. Maybe a little bit, right? Sarah, you got a gorgeous purple. So there you go. Ruby, yeah, there's a little bit of a purple tint on the kind of shadowy sides, the deeper parts, but it's more red for me in my color and in the light I'm in with the conditions I'm looking at it. It's a deep color, and that Dean and Bobbin are kind of noting for us, goes nearly to the rim, right? A clear rim. So you get this color variation or a lack of variation from the center here as you travel to the outside when you're looking down. In the center here, it's about the same color as you find out here. There's no real variation. Sometimes you'll see a deeper color in the middle, and then you'll move and it'll get lighter and potentially a little bit browner or tawnied in color. And sometimes the rim, that meniscus around the rim, will have a real variation in color. And that variation or that gradation of colors is a really good indication of potentially of age. That age is not really indicative of what we're seeing here. So, and sometimes you'll get a really nice little layer on that meniscus, that rim. It looks watery. And that watery rim sometimes, most oftentimes, is an indication of higher alcohol. I'm not getting a whole bunch of that. So a youthful wine. So from the appearance, we know it's youthful. We know it's ruby colored, a little bit of purple flecks, purple tinge to it. A deep color. The opacity's there. I could maybe make out letters to this, or I could make out that there are letters and words if I was to read a paper underneath it. But it's not super light, but it's also not the darkest wine. So it's middle of the road, and that ruby color is kind of middle of the road. There's a lot of options where it's ruby. There are some times where this process helps you be way ahead of the game because it's lighter. Gamay or Pinot Noir become really your choices, or other choices, Saint Laurent, other things like we had more a couple of tastings ago. But it's in this middle range. There are a lot of options, so you're not weeding out a ton, but you are weeding out some. Like I don't know that we'd be talking about Aglianico or talking about Tannat, Petit Verdot in this case. We're also probably not talking about Pinot Noir, but we're not for sure on that yet. So not getting a lot of indication from the color and from the state of it, but knowing that it's pretty youthful. So that youth is expressive already, which is pretty neat in the way of that kind of opulent fruit, and we'll get to that in just a minute. For me, there's a definite tear formation. It moves pretty quick, but they form and they hold, right? And so there is, let's put it in this context, like sub 13% alcohol. Let's say when you swirled it, the tears would form fast. They'd run down. 13 to 14, they form, like they slowly form, and then they kind of trickle down. But they move in consistent fashion. 14 plus, and you're getting more of like a pancake syrup kind of running down, and they hold more persistently. So this might be 13, 13.5, right? This is by appearance. We'll get a better sense too as we smell and taste. Right now, I don't have a greater sense than that. So what potential varietals can we be talking about? A wide spectrum. Anything that's sort of medium minus to medium plus profile, things like Dolcetto, Sangiovese, Merlot perhaps. We could be talking about Syrah. We could be talking about even bigger Gamays, maybe, bigger Pinot Noirs, maybe Zinfandel, for example. But a lot of options, and so we don't need to rush to that kind of judgment. This process is about what can you say as opposed to having to determine something from this. Thankfully, we don't have to make our guess based on just the appearance. So let's work the nose and see what the nose tells us. Man, that's hedonistic, isn't it? That's just delicious. Like it smells crushed fresh berries, tart and ripe, a little bit sweetened, cobbler-esque, but not stewed long time cobbler with lots of brown sugar molasses element. It's more like fresh compote that you'd macerate some blueberries from the farmer's market with sugar and put them on ice cream, right? And it just kind of has that fresh, bright, vibrant quality about it. I've said blueberries a couple times, and usually when I say blueberry, I have to think about Grenache. Sometimes Infidel too, sometimes Malbec. Candy, first thoughts on aroma with Sangiovese? So yeah, putting that in the mix for sure. Why not? Dean, I like the descriptors of dried fruit, Asian or Middle Eastern spice, some cherry. Yes. So we're looking for a few things, right? Fruit, earth, and wood on the nose. And we'll look for those same things on the palate. And from the fruit side, what kind of fruit? What's the character of that fruit? What's the state of that fruit? So is it some citrus? Is it tropical fruit? Is it stone fruit, i.e. fruit with a pit? Is it tree fruit, apples and pears? What kind of berries, if it's berries? Do you get the red raspberries? Do you get cherries? Do you get blackberries? Do you get currants? Things of that sort. And then you're looking also at some savory notes too that can be fruit-oriented, of course, like bell pepper. Amy's throwing that out there right now. If you're getting some bell pepper, that's a great indicator perhaps of some pyrazine. So maybe we're considering Cabernet Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon. Those are the two varietals that oftentimes present pyrazine or that bell pepper note most. Some Malbec for sure. Some Carmenere also is an option in that regard. So that's the fruit side of things. Earth would be earthen flavors, earthen aromas, literally earth. So forest floor, dirt, humus, compost, things of that sort. Could be bark on a tree. Can be earthy notes like saddle leather, cedar kind of notes, cigar box. Some of that's more wood too. Tobacco. Those elements being more earthen, and then you've got the flavors associated with wood, which would be spice, and spices like those baking spices. You could get dill. You could pick up a little bit of cedar, some sauna smell, or that cigar box kind of smell. You can also get some elements of kind of a vanillin note, perhaps too, coming from American oak. And so, what fruit notes? I'm seeing some responses here of black cherry and pomegranate, blueberries and other dark berries, berries, lots of berries, some dried fruit in the way of dried prunes, dried figs. And that kind of panoply of fruit makes me think of a few different places. So you're getting warmth, you're getting a ripe climate, right? We saw leg formation, tear formation, some substantial formation there, and this abundance of fruit. So it leads you to think about more of a warmer climate rather than a cooler climate. So a place that has some ripeness, and that this fruit got ripe, got kind of almost sun-kissed, right? To Curtis and Renee's point here, getting some overripe blueberries, a little bit medicinal, right? So there's like Spain, Italy has parts of this for sure. Southern France, California, maybe parts of Washington, South Africa, Australia for sure. We're talking about South America for sure too as a potential, right? Just based on that profile. So it's not weeding that down, but it's not, cool climate sort of Sancerre Pinot Noir or German Pinot Noir, for example. We know that much. I don't know that it's high elevation, leaner wines from, say, Austrian reds. Although maybe Blaufränkisch could be in this running. We'll see more here. It's pretty though. All right, so from the fruit side, we got plenty of fruit. From the earth side, not a whole bunch, right? And then there seems to be a little bit of spice. The medicinal notes, there's a little bit of a hint of spice. The coriander, Dean's picking up a little cayenne, hot pepper. So that peppery note is more on the fruit side, but the coriander spice, baking spice element that might be coming out is more potential wood. And I don't think there's an abundance of wood here, not at least by the nose, but maybe more of a neutral barrel or some new barrel or a little element of oak here for aging purposes. This is pretty youthful, so it's not aging a ton, I don't think. I think we're talking about 2 to 4 years of age, but it's part of the rearing of this wine sees a little bit of oak, probably a couple years old oak. It's pretty. All right, excited to try this. So take a taste, and as you taste it, look for two things, of course, or two paths: the taste profile and the flavor profile. The taste profile, what's the texture like? Is it a light bodied wine? Is it a medium bodied? Is it a robust wine? Does this have a good amount of alcohol? Where are the tannins at on this? How high or low is the acidity? That's the taste. And then you go into the flavor profile, and again, look for fruit, earth, and wood. What kind of fruit, what kind of earthen notes, what kind of wood notes do you pick up on the palate? And are they the same as the nose, or is there a deviation from that? Mm. Ooh, long finish. So medium tannin, medium acid, maybe medium plus. Ooh, I'm salivating right underneath my tongue, and it's like building. The lingering finish is increasing the acidic experience. So cocoa long finish, nice. This is a lovely wine. One thing that's more prominent right off the first taste. So we've got medium plus body, medium plus acid, medium tannin. And they're a finer tannin. They're not real rustic. They're not gruff. There's a little finesse to the tannin here. And then on the flavor side, what are you picking up? Cocoa. Cocoa is kind of an indicator maybe of more of a toasted barrel. There's a wood quality here. There's a little vanillin. And then milk chocolate, verging on dark chocolate. Sarah's throwing out a blend potentially because it's got a nice balance to it. And sometimes the blend is really what accounts for the variation in profiles. And by that, I mean when you have that leathery note, when you have a little bit of the tart fruit, the ripe fruit, the dried fruit, it could be because you've got different varietals at play. It could be because they're picking at different points. Holder, good evening. Leather, you just noted it too. Fantastic, yes, welcome. Black licorice, nice note there too. A little bit of berries. There's a touch of alcohol on the finish that Dean's noting and Bob is noting that I am too. There's there's a quality about a couple of wines that I've tried, and someone made a note once that was just illuminating that some of that alcohol and some of that high warm fruit, depending on how long that fruit was in the sun as it was picked and it was in those lugs or plastic, it doesn't leach plastic per se, but it has this ripe aroma of warm kind of plastic. You left your water bottle outside. There's a bit of that here for me, and it's just it's jogging a flavor, a taste memory. This is a fruity wine, but it has a little bit of an earthy or subtext to that fruit. It has some oak, medium body, medium plus acid, medium kind of tannin. So I think you can walk away from something like Pinot Noir, right? You can probably walk away from something like Gamay, maybe, right? The tannin has a heft to it. And so let's talk a little bit about tannin, right? Like you're not talking about, I mean, Syrah can give you tannin, right? But it's with this much fruit where you find Syrah like this, likely at this price point, you're talking about Rhone or Rhone style blend from Australia, and the tannins aren't there as much. There's a broader quality of tannin here, and a little bit of Dean, you're picking up a little bit of sweetness. Yeah, and I'm wondering the same. That sweetness, is that alcohol messing with us a little bit? Does it have a little residual sugar, just enough to make it kind of pleasing and fun? Not a ton there. Amy's asking about Cabernet Franc. I think you should absolutely leave that in the mix here. You've got some structure for sure, and some riper Cabernet Franc. More of an old world profile, but it's got a ripeness to it that would be a warm place old world. Southern France, maybe Rhone. Yep, I think that's we have to consider that for sure. So Grenache, Syrah, Mourvedre, maybe that's playing together to give you that blend that has this kind of dimension. It doesn't, Natalie, you're right, it doesn't really have the black pepper, earthy kind of meaty, smoked meat, cured meat note that would be a more of a tell of Syrah, but it does have, sometimes you don't pick up that per se if it's Syrah kind of in a very ripe spot. Spain giving you some more ripe, northern Spain giving you ripe expression of the Grenache and Syrah together. Australia, as I've mentioned. Yeah, Julie's got a good note there, Natalie. I think there's a quality about this that certainly indicates sometimes we're tricked by the real ripe fruit profile that we taste. The flavor of fruit and the aroma of fruit suggests sweetness. Our mind knows that. And then you have a little bit of an elevated alcohol, which added to that really perceives or reads as sweet on the palate, and it could be quite dry. Anyway, this has a little lingering quality right before it finishes that might have a gram or two of residual sugar, but I don't think I think otherwise it's a dry wine. Like, is this an Italian wine? Is this a wine that is from Austria? Is this a wine that is identifiable in one particular place or not, right? And I don't think it's, I don't think we're talking about Nebbiolo, for example. Going back to Sangiovese, are we talking about Sangiovese here? Dean's noting that after a while, the tannins have softened. Super Tuscan, now that's a cool idea, Amy, very much so, right? It could be Cabernet Franc, could be Cabernet Sauvignon done in Italy, and that gives you that ripeness, maybe a little bit of this herbal note, this green peppery note. It's not as much green pepper as it is reddish pepper, right? And the spiced pepper, and so some of that heat there. There's a black tea note. Like I'm thinking about Cabernet Sauvignon here quite a bit. Montepulciano, Super Tuscan, Zinfandel, so Primitivo. So maybe we are in Italy, perhaps. But oodles of fruit. Just tons of it. Candy and Nicole are already ready to put their, it's already 23 minutes in. Gosh. Time flies when you're having fun. Putting their flag in Italy. Zinfandel, question mark. Oh, totally changed upon pouring it. Wow, it's a little more raisiny. This reminds me now of the wine, gosh, what was that wine called? It was an Italian family from the Veneto who made Ripasso and made Valpolicella, Ripassos, and Amarones. And they made a wine, I'm blanking right now on the producer, in South America from Malbec and other grapes, Bonarda and things of that sort. And they would use that same technique of raisinating the fruit and then pressing. And there was always this sort of wonderful opulence of fruit and this element of raisiny notes. And wow. Well, it got a lot in. I mean, it was already interesting, but it got more interesting as I poured that second. There's more now of kind of that. There was a note before about molasses and that cobbler note I noted that was more fresh. This is sort of deepening. There is that crust, stewed fruit, vanilla ice cream kind of running into it a little bit. There's a vanilla note. So I threw out Cabernet Sauvignon. Could this be a Cabernet blend, Cabernet Merlot, Bordeaux blend, but from somewhere more New Worldish or like Super Tuscan? So I agree. It's getting richer as it warms up. It's developing certainly, which is kind of surprising in one respect, as we noted, or at least as I noted, relative to the age. A wine that is maturing in the character as it's open for 25 minutes, and it's youthful, like it's a youthful wine. So it's maybe there's something about the winemaking there in terms of oxidation and softening the wine as they're making it. And the West Coast absolutely is an option. Dean, I know you're hinting at Zin, and you're now saying West Coast again. It looks like you're driving us that way. Yeah, and West Coast, and to your point, Washington, Cab Blend, Cab Sauv, and Syrah are blends that you'd find up in Washington State. And that's kind of neat. Nicole and Candy are all on the blend idea. Dean's just stirring the pot, not planting a flag in the West Coast yet. Now there's baking spices, and there's this, really neat cobbler quality. Like Petite Syrah, but I don't think that accounts for the tannin. I'm not sure Zinfandel accounts for the tannin as much here, but you can definitely get there. Multiple China is kind of neat too, but there's not like enough earthy. Oh, Sarah, the coq au vin with this, awesome, awesome. Like that medium high acidity, still making me salivate, but the tannin now is building. I mean, that's the case after you have several sips of the wine. Like the tannins seem to layer on, especially if you're not eating with it. Gosh, I'm a little bit confused, as Dean noted too. I'm not clear on this wine, right? It's got a number of options, and so let's recap those options. We're Cabernet Franc, Sangiovese, Tuscan blend, Cabernet Merlot, Cabernet Syrah blend. Not Germany, not Austria, maybe Southern Italian, Southern France. I don't think necessarily Spain. And there's like this less raisiny note, although I just noted there's a little bit of a dried note on the palate that was not there as much in the beginning. It was part of the aroma that we picked up. West Coast, I don't think South America. It would be particular, like the example I gave out that way. I don't think South Africa. Australia is, from that fruit profile, it can still be in the running, perhaps. Anybody feeling definitive? Getting to a point where they're comfortable? Dave's planting his flag in Washington State. Amy, you're picking up mint. Mint's a good indicator sometimes of some spots in California. Definitely an option in Australia. Yeah, I agree, Holder. Warmer climate, like southern France, so Italy more likely from Candy. Yeah, there's a profile here that. Natalie, you're picking up eucalyptus, and if you're getting that eucalyptus, that is a pretty good tell, generally speaking, for Australia. And maybe we're looking at like a GSM blend from Australia, right? Or a cab blend from Australia. Mm. Yeah, I think, Sarah, you kind of encapsulate our situation there. A Rhone blend, but not from the Rhone, a Rhone blend from Washington State or Australia, an atypical kind of cross blend of Cabernet and Syrah, perhaps from either of those places. Super Tuscan, that's showcasing Cabernet Franc, Petit Verdot, Merlot, Cabernet Sauvignon, but in the Tuscan sun. Um, I think you can argue all those points. I think if you had, gosh, dang, it just changed again. Anybody getting more soy sauce, like braised short rib Asian kind of profile? And it's a little earthier. Man, oh man, that's a cool wine. Amy's heading back toward California. Dave's jumping New World. It's just a wine that we're bouncing all over the world with, right? It is one of those challenges because it has enough about it that could be in multiple places. It's also indicative of the world of wine that we are in today, right? Where one, you have warming climates, and so you have less examples of quote cold places and warm places. You have warmth in certain pockets in all kinds of places. The new world and the old world are bleeding together by way of better winemaking techniques in both places. And with that warming trend and the desire to make a wine that's more approachable early and with more fruit, you get that. There's a quality about this fruit here that seems to rule out certain places for sure, but there are enough places like we're outlining that it could be considered. So Dean left California for Italy. I like that call. Eucalyptus is now, mintiness is coming jumping out for me. Okay, I think I know where I'm going. But I'm not, like if I was to put a percentage on it, I'm maybe like 65% comfortable with a Bordeaux blend from Australia. So somewhere in South Australia, Cabernet Merlot. Yeah, 2020, 2021, 2 to 4 years of age. It's a cool wine. If you're in southern Italy, you're thinking Montepulciano, you're thinking Super Tuscan, you're thinking Primitivo, Zinfandel there. Some very cool options that way. If you're in the southern part of France, maybe a Rhone blend. If you're in Washington State, kind of a blend, Rhone type blend, a Syrah kind of blend, maybe a Syrah Cabernet blend, which they do there pretty uniquely. Now there's like cured smoked meats. Yeah, wow. Okay, so maybe Syrah's coming out now. Just needed a moment. So GSM, Syrah Cab, like there's a. Gosh, that's tough. I'm stuck. I want to say a Syrah Cabernet type blend. So Shiraz, Cab Shiraz from Australia, 2021. That's where I'm going. That's where I'm sticking. It has elements of fruit that you get from Shiraz. It has elements of Cabernet in terms of some of that green and the peppery notes. It has tannin. It has acidity. It has ripeness, sunshine warmth. So it has a Bordeaux bottle. So more indicative of a Cabernet or Merlot or Malbec potentially, traditionally. So let's see. Let's see what we're doing. Ooh, damn. You should have stayed where you were, Dean. This is Zinfandel. This is from Mendocino County. So California Zin. Damn. Cool, though. 2021. Mm-mm-mm. Wow. I walked away from Zin pretty defiantly, but full of cherry and blackberry fruit. And yes, it is. Graham crackers, dark chocolate, and baking spices. These are their tasting notes, and they're dead on because that is what's found here. And 15% alcohol, but it is riding 15% alcohol extremely well. This is holding beautifully. Like this is, damn. Yeah, Dean, you got to go with your gut sometimes. You got to go with what's kind of sitting out there, even if you're trying to work it past that point. The mind's like, this is a fun game. Let's keep playing. Whereas your palate's like, we already know this. Just let us talk. And your mind overrides and overrides and overrides and takes you away from what you know already. So, yeah, Natalie Primitiva was thrown out there. Dean was asking about Zinfandel for sure and talking West Coast. And then I certainly will take the blame for dragging away from that. This is a tasty wine. This is neat in the context certainly of a perception of Zinfandel, right? That Zinfandel is either huge and big, or it can be kind of red and easy. The complexity here for a wine that is from 21, so it's 3 years old, and really expresses in a beautiful way an old world characteristic, a new world characteristic, a variety of different varietals that give you this wonderful expression. And so very cool. Awesome. Thank you all very much for playing, and it is much better than Parcheesi. Dave, Natalie, to your question or your comment about the RDV sale, it's very exciting. I think, Rutger set out to, in his own words, create that Ferrari, and did just that. And someone valued that Ferrari and is excited about carrying on what he created. And the family that purchased it own a number of tremendous properties in Europe: Chateau Montrose, Chateau Trotanoy, and Clos Rougeard. I mean, these are top crew level quality products, producers in really cool places. And I think it'll be very exciting to see how they interface with our very own Josh Grainer. And he's staying on, as far as he's told me. He said he's excited about the next chapter. And I mean, why would they? Josh Grainer is the proverbial cherry on top of a fantastic sundae that they got. And you get a master of wine and a fantastic winemaker who's been there since the beginning. To have that, and then to have the interface then and the growing kind of grouping of talent that this group will offer Josh by way of know-how and exposure to other winemaking techniques and ideas. I think it's very exciting for RDV for sure, which will now become Lost Mountain, and also for Virginia. I'm pretty excited to have them in the backyard here now with this new folks. I will miss Rutger. But I have to go find Rutger in the mountains, which would not be bad either. And I think it's just an exciting validation, one, for his effort, and two, for what Virginia can do, right? When you have someone who's got a second growth Bordeaux property, has one of the premier properties in the Loire Valley, and they look to Virginia as another place to expand their operation, right? That's wonderful for us. And so I'm excited for them, and excited to see where they go with the winery. I was immediately enthralled by the purchase and brought in a little bit of Chateau Montrose, which is one of the other properties that they own. So hopefully soon we should have a little 1998 here and a little 2015. And anyway, I think it's great. I think I applaud Rutger on what he did and how he did it, and being able to exit in the way he wanted to and leave it in great hands, both with Josh and the crew that's coming in. So Sarah, to your last question there, yeah, I agree. No, yes, I agree. More European attention is wonderful here, and a sensibility that they appreciate. There's a ripeness quality here and a caliber of potential here that is still being realized, which is wonderful. And then, Sarah, to your point, have I tried the Glen Manor Nebbiolo? Yes, I have. And it's lovely. We have a little bit here in the restaurant, and love to pour that wine. It sounds excellent, and it is. It presents Nebbiolo characteristic, but a little bit riper. A little riper, I should say, relative to what you might expect from the Piedmont. and is just a cool expression altogether. Another very unique presentation of the varietal, but a viable one. And so awesome. Yeah, we coaxed Jeff out of some bottles and he gave us a few to put on the list here. We have a few left. So if you want to come by next time and have one of those, you can certainly do it here, or you can maybe go to Glen Manor and see if Jeff has any left and coax it out of him there. Always a pleasure. Thank you so very much for tasting with me. You know, I love getting it wrong as much as I like getting it right, especially when I get the chance to do this with you, because you learn something else and it's an enjoyable process all the way through. So cheers all. Thanks again. See you in July, and hopefully August too.